brand new album called Scaled and Icy. It's out now. It's brand new. It's post-pandemic.
My sweatshirt says nothing on it because I'm all about darkness.
Hi guys, James Wilson-Taylor here for Roxanne with the latest of our video calls and a very special one today, as I recently had the chance to chat with 21 Pilots, Tyler, Joseph and Josh Dunn, all about their incredible new album Scaled and Icy and putting together that epic live stream experience which launched the whole campaign. Now, if you want to check out the entire interview, it is available right now in this very special 21 Pilots edition of Roxanne, 36 pages with the full interview, photos from that live stream, and it all comes with a giant double-sided A1 poster. It's available right now only at shop.rocksound.tv. And today we are going to bring you some extended video highlights from that conversation, and we begin with the live stream show. How did they put it together? What did they make of the fan reactions? And did it make them see any of those new songs in a different light? So without any further ado, here they are in conversation from 21 Pilots. This is Tyler Joseph and Josh Dunn. I want to start with that live stream. Congratulations, guys. Like, really one of the most incredible things I've, you know, as you might imagine, I've watched a lot of live streams this last year. That really was a whole nother level. So well deserved, all the praise. Loads I want to ask you about it. Before I do, just generally, how are you kind of reflecting on it after a few weeks? I mean, you must be delighted with the fan reception to it.
Yeah. Josh?
I mean, I think, it was a lot of work leading up to it, and kind of just like, I think in those few days too, it was kind of just like a whirlwind of just kind of making sure that every piece fit together perfectly and everybody was prepared. I think there were more people involved than, a normal show, some dancers, a couple extra singers, musicians. So there were obviously a lot of moving parts. And then the very next morning we flew to LA and had another week of other stuff. So maybe I'm just now starting to process the live stream.
I remember thinking, oh yeah, we released a record.
Yeah.
Because
it feels like that was,
there was so much focus on preparing for this live stream and everything that went into it. It's like we didn't even, the idea that we were releasing a record almost, didn't have the bandwidth to fully understand that we had also released a record, because we put everything we had into that stream. So.
Yeah, well, it's off that energy though, because like I mean, for me, watching all of them over the last year from various different bands, obviously completely different all the time, but the ones that have been most effective are people who did what you guys did, where you realize, well, we could just do a pilot show and broadcast it, or we could do something made for this format, something that benefits from being watched at home. What was it like approaching a show, I guess, from this completely new angle you'd never explored before?
Well, I think it really helped that we'd almost had this very strong conviction against live stream shows for a while, where it was like, we don't think that we've grown to appreciate, and we've learned just how amazing the energy is inside of a real venue in front of a real audience. There's really no way to capture that and to really have that energy and that power translate through a screen. And so, because that's where we came from, we almost kind of, I guess, we always kind of took a stance like, no, we'll never do a live stream. And so the idea that we were kind of, our hand was forced, and because of things that we'd said to other people and to each other about, we're just not gonna, we don't like the concept of it. It kept us. It forced us to go, okay, we're gonna do it, but we've got to do it differently than it's ever been done before, especially when it comes to our show. It can't just be a stream of what we do every night on a stage. It's got to be new. We got to tell a story. There needs to be a narrative. It needs to stay fresh and exciting all throughout. So I think it really helped that for years we've been against the live stream, and it forced us to approach it differently.
some of the differences. You know, we already mentioned there, extra musicians playing live with you. What was it like building that band? I want to give a particular shout out to Sky, actually, because I love seeing the dynamic between you and him. Josh was particularly cool. Obviously, we've interviewed Sky many times over the years for his other work. It was really nice to see him pop up there. Yeah, just a little bit about putting together that band and I guess reworking songs in a way to have that fuller effect.
Yeah, I mean, we knew that for that stream specifically, and for a few things that were coming up, we wanted to feel backed by that instrumentation. We've always kind of tracked stuff. I mean, we haven't been shy about that. But to really put a body and energy behind those parts rather than just relying on a backing track felt right. I think Josh and I have talked about this a lot. Like, we've proven we can do this. You know, the two of us, we did it. You know, we showed what we're capable of as a two-piece, and we will always be a two-piece band in the truest sense. But it's the idea of bringing in extra players to help fill that sound out. You know, Sky is he's the bassist. I just kind of followed him on Instagram, and he posts some awesome clips of him playing, and just reached out, and it seemed to work great. And he mentioned Dan, the guy on the guitar, was a friend of his at first, so we met him through Sky. And Todd on some keys and guitar, he was playing in the band Mute Meth. We met him through that. And then Jesse Bloom on trumpet and extra keys. I mean, he's in a band called Mr. Wives that we've toured with. I mean, these are just guys that it really, watching them all together, not just playing music, but just kind of interacting. It was like, wow, we kind of randomly stumbled on a great group of guys here.
I know from just myself watching it, it put a load of those new songs in a different context for me and how I thought about them. I've read a load of the fan reaction online. It seems like it did the same thing for them. I wonder with you guys, putting these in a completely different staging, putting them in a really, really new place, did that open up anything new about those songs to you? Was there anything you guys noticed that maybe you hadn't seen before when you were recording them?
I actually said to Tyler a few days after the live stream that it does. I mean, I think anytime really we go on tour and we play the songs, it brings them to life in a way that didn't really exist, maybe even in the studio. But I remember even specifically like Mulberry Street, and just kind of the feeling that I had playing that live in that setting, and with Tyler dancing and having dancers, and I definitely, I feel like I listen to that song differently now in a way that's cool. And so yeah, I think that's the cool thing about audio and visual together. A lot of times I think like watching a music video from a band, that's kind of ingrained in your mind whenever you hear that song, from then forward, or when you see a band live, that can totally change the way that you hear those songs too.
And let's get into the record, shall we? I mean, I love the album, guys. Really, really enjoyed it. There's so much I want to pick out from it, but I just think the initial thing listening to the first time was, and I know you've talked about this before, but that very big, bright sound. And I don't know, one of the themes I've always picked out with you guys, lyrically at least, is escapism. And that could be escaping from your anxieties, or it could be, it was very clear metaphor in a lot of Trench I found and all that stuff. What was interesting about this is, to me, it was escapism in the music and in that soundscape, because while this is by no means a pandemic record, after this year, my God, having some big, upbeat, danceable stuff from you guys was just a proper breath of fresh air in a lot of ways, and I think really provides that escape in a whole different way that I hadn't seen from you guys before. Talk to me a little bit, I guess, about building that particular sound structure and why you wanted to play with those sounds. I feel like piano's more forward in this one than it has been in a while too.
Yeah, I mean, great assessment of the record. Excited for me to hear it in your words. I got a new piano in the studio, and so that helped. Like, I got the real deal back there chilling, and it was a bit of a process getting it down the studio and into the room. But I'm sitting at a piano that I just bought that's down at my studio. And I also like kind of helped / watched these guys like wrestle this thing into the room and set it up and then tune it and all that stuff. And it's like, there was such work that went into just getting the instrument into the room. Like it was already spring loaded for me to write a song on it. I don't know how to explain that really, but the energy of me being a part of getting the instrument in the room was also transitioned into writing Good Day. And I wanted to just wail on that left hand and just kind of open this up. And so the piano coming into the studio was kind of like a day one of having a piano in the studio, but also I guess in a sense acted as a day one of the record as well. And it always kind of kept on, that song always kept on being the opening track in my head as I was working on the record. I didn't know if I was going to be able to beat it, if I was going to, you know, as you put a record together, sometimes songs can shift around in the way that you see them kind of ordering out. And Good Day just continued to be like, oh no, this is how we start this. Yeah, it was, the piano was I had a lot of fun doing that. But then at the same time, there's a lot of new gear that I was fooling around with too on the record. Like I was playing electric guitar for the first time, really understanding. I mean, listen, I'm not a tone nerd. I don't really know exactly what I'm doing, but I know that, it sounds cool to me. And then, playing a lot more bass instead of programming it, actually playing it. Like you feel the humanness behind it, and just stuff like that. That's the sort of stuff that I think of when asked about the creation process of that record. And I've always mentioned that the more time that you put in between when the record was written and where you currently are, the clearer you understand why the record was written in that way and why it came out that way. I don't know if while I was writing it, the intention was like, hey, let's write a shinier, brighter, happier record. I don't think that, Josh and I, when we go back and we talk about, if we remember some of the conversations, neither one of us were saying this is going to be, let's write a brighter record. It just started to turn into that. And it really wasn't until we released it and everyone was saying, this is so much brighter than everything else. It was like, oh, I guess it is.
Yeah, it just suddenly clicks like that. I mean, it's funny you say that about bringing out the human sound within it, though, because that first single, again, what struck me with Shy Away was, yeah, it's that new wave sound. And you traditionally in your head, you associate new wave with like, oh, it's super, super synthy. And obviously there's synths in there, but what comes through, the drums are almost the main instrument on there. That's live drums on a big synth pop track. You don't really see that every day. That really kind of brought through. That's what's driving the track, right? I guess that plays in again to that idea of, yeah, let's make it sound like humans are playing on this in a really forward-thinking way, right?
Yeah, Josh recorded those drums all by himself.
Nice. What was that experience like, Josh?
It was scary for being, the first time doing it, but also really fun. I think that, I think in some ways, I think Tyler kind of just forging his way into learning new instruments and learning how to record and produce by himself was kind of gave me some confidence to kind of go in and try and, record things on my own. And it was a really fun process. I would like to continue doing that. I will add too, I think that, as we were working on this album, going back to the conversation of, brighter and poppier sounding, I was feeling like, and we've actually, Tyler and I had a conversation about how it kind of, a lot of this album to me is reminiscent of some of our older stuff. And so I do think that, I've seen a lot of people kind of making that note that it's brighter sounding. And I do think that it is. But I wonder if that is in kind of direct comparison with our last album, Trench. Because, our first album has a song like Guns for Hands, which to me sounds like a pop song. It's a very bright sounding song. But you know, deals with some heavier stuff, and a lot of that album is. And so I mean, this may be our brightest sounding record that we've done, but maybe not, when you're listening compared to everything. So, you know, and I think that also, Tyler and I were, I mean, since we were younger, I think we both were just very inspired and interested in all sorts of different kinds of music. And I think that that's probably why albums will sound different from, you know, from one to the next, is it's just kind of, sort of constantly wanting to, explore those things that we've been inspired by, or continue to be inspired by, not expired. And it's, yeah, I think it's really fun to do that, to try and, you know, shift and grow and evolve, while trying to maintain the integrity of, you know, the band that we started.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's interesting you talk about referencing some of your older work in there, because I guess Choker being a particularly good example. I know I've heard you guys say in interviews as well, you know, that almost harkens back to Vessel in a way, I guess musically, but also, like you say, wrapping up more serious topics, but with a much brighter sound behind it. And again, that piano propping up through there. Tyler, I mean, I've seen you say in a few places that, yeah, that felt like working on Vessel again on that particular song. What is it about that track that felt the same to you, or in similar territory to that era of the band?
It was so easy. And I think it's because I think that it's almost like writing a song is you're at one end of some property, and you got to cut through the woods to get to the other end. And every time you do it, you feel this pressure to like take a different route, to, you know, maybe climb over, you know, this creek here, and, you know, go under this fallen tree here, and oh, that was a different route, but I got through the woods and now I'm in the field. Like, that's where I was trying to get to. And then, all right, let's write another song. Let's start here, and then let's just kind of like head to the right, and, you know, and then it's a brand new series of obstacles. The song Choker, it was a path that I had taken several times already. You know, I'd almost like didn't even have to think about it. It had been done, but in a sense that, without it seeming like a negative thing. I think as a songwriter, you always, you know, you can feel the pull towards, habits. You know, you have an arsenal of tools that are available to you. And so what you're doing is you're constantly trying to pick a different combination of those tools and trying to push against that pull towards habit. And so then you find a new path, and you do it in a new way, in a different way. For Choker, I didn't fight it. I leaned into it. And I realized, I learned a very important lesson, that just because it's the same path, just because it seemed familiar and it was easy, there was enough time between the last time I had taken that path that there were things different about it. You know, like it had overgrown in certain areas, or it had, you know, water had eroded certain areas where it was, you know, as time goes on, things change. And so even though I was taking a familiar path, I was a different person. You know, I was in a different space. And so that's kind of why I relate Choker to writing Vessel. It was the right amount of time in between the last time I had gone down that path. And that's why it was equal parts easy to write, familiar, but also still new, in a sense, because of the time.
Mulberry Street I want to mention next, because a real standout on the record. I know we've already mentioned it a little bit. I guess the obvious question is, you know, there is a significance that you guys have talked about before about that street, you know, the first time visiting New York and all these kind of things, or at least, you know, very early in your career. It's a place that means something to you. It clearly meant something to you in that live stream, actually putting it on its feet like that. How was it actually finding the right musical language to kind of tell that story, or to find something that fit an actual physical place that means a lot to you in real life?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those piano movements that just kind of fell out of the sky. You know, playing that, I guess that would be a G. Yeah, and then to D and then A. And I don't know, something about the bounce to it. Like I have this talking about habits and talking about, you know, different tools. You tend to want to move quickly as a musician, because the idea of strumming something like, oh no, I can go quicker because I've sharpened my skills to go quicker, to maintain time, to maintain my sense of tempo, but also play quicker. So there is this natural feeling as a musician, as a songwriter, and as a producer to want the song to go faster because it proves your skill. That was a song where I, again, trying to fight, push against that natural pull. No, slow it down, even slower. And so because I it just kind of fell out of the sky, and because I had the wherewithal and the patience to let that song be kind of just a chugging along slower, put more time in between that the grid there. And equally, I felt like, you know, us getting signed and being, you know, the success we had, as much as we worked hard for it and we were prepared and we had, I mean, we really worked hard to be in that position. You can't deny the fact that it also fell out of the sky. You know, if we were to recreate what we did to, you know, our journey to get to where we are now, there's no saying that it would work again. Now, you know, it was a perfect time and place, stars aligned. And so the idea of the music itself kind of just like happened, and the trajectory and, you know, getting signed and going to New York City for the first time, and, you know, having real Italian, you know, from Little Italy, and, you know, that street and that crossroads there, it's like, it all kind of just made sense to marry the two things.
Yeah, fits really, really. Touch of the Ben Folds about it as well. He's one of my favorite artists ever, so I really liked hearing some of that in there. Dude,
he's like he's my number one. He's
No,
the only person that on my list that I haven't met. Yeah, I've got like 5 people that I've always wanted to meet, and he's the only one that I haven't met yet.
Oh man,
Close though, right?
Huh?
Didn't we see him at an airport?
Yeah, I did. I just walked by him.
Oh, I get it. I might get. I mean, you can't see it in the shot behind me on the computer. We've got a signed sheet music of the Luckiest that he did. He releases some every year that you can buy around it. And it was for. I got it for my wife and I's anniversary, and brilliantly, she'd bought exactly the same thing, so we had to return one of them, which I really liked.
That's awesome, dude.
I know, right?
And it's on Luckiest, which is like perfect.
Exactly.
Like,
beautiful, beautiful song. So amazing. But yeah, how good is that to buy the same present as something like that? Absolutely love it.
That's amazing.
So good.
The song "The Outside," it really is, you know, wrestling with the idea of time and how inevitably there's a shelf life to any, whether it's career or your creativity or whatever it is that I was focusing on at the time, is this idea that it is inevitably going to come to an end. So how do you wrestle with that? And I think that I was trying to come to grips with the idea of graduating into a class of bands that have had enough behind them that moving forward was, I don't know, there's just a different graduating class. Like I don't know who else is in that class with us, but it felt like we were, you know, graduating to a new grade, if you will, or whatever. And then, you know, you're asking how did the pandemic kind of bring a new light to a song that was currently being written? I would say that feeling of graduating to the next phase was, I guess, exaggerated, because now it really does feel like it's going to be the bands and artists pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. Like there was this thing that was thrust in that really is dividing it. And I think it really like put us on a fast track to being a band that was post-pandemic. That put us on a fast track to being a band that from then, which is okay. And there's something amazing about it and having that history. But with an event like that, when you press pause for a whole year, how can that not be? How can our culture and our world not view it as that now? And so equal parts, we were, I guess not, we didn't want to stop, you know, we didn't want to press pause on our touring. We wanted to keep on going, but we were forced to stop. But at the same time, how lucky were we to get in what we had gotten in? There's, you know, all of the shows that we had done and all of the touring that we were able to do, and really connect with our fans. I mean, we really were fortunate. All that to say that the song The Outside really, you know, coming to grips with time and graduating and moving forward. And I realized that when things pick up again, there will be two different types of acts. There will be acts that are like, you got to go see them. It's a brand new thing. And then there's acts like, oh, this was just like before the pandemic, you know, and almost this very nostalgic, reminiscent, exciting familiarity. And inevitably we're going to fall into that latter category. But it is interesting that the pandemic itself has kind of moved those, as where like grades, you know, 11th and 12th grade are right next to each other. Now all of a sudden I feel like we moved from, you know, middle school to high school. Like it's a bigger jump. It's a new building. You know, I don't know how else to describe it. I've exhausted the metaphor, but that's kind of what it feels like.
It's an apt one though, because I think you're right. I think there's something to be said of that being a very nice, in the way that we've all sought out comfort, whether it's through watching the same TV shows, same movies, and listening to our favorite bands, whatever that is. There is something to be said for the fact that when shows come back, people will want to go and see their favorite bands. I think it's quite interesting that you say that you will inevitably fall into that latter category though, because clearly, as we've seen with not only this record, but the show that before that, and even how your tours evolve and change all the way through it, like you're challenging yourself. Do you really think it would be automatically falling into that comfort space rather than challenging and doing something new?
Well, this is when I need Josh to even me out.
That's when we get the balance.
And these are the things we talk about this stuff all the time, and I'm always like, I don't know. It's hard. Sometimes I really lose sight of what's really going on and kind of see the worst in a lot of stuff. And not that Josh.
You have a brand new album called Scaled and Icy. It's out now. It's brand new. It's post-pandemic.
My sweatshirt says nothing on it because I'm all about darkness.
Guys, I'll kind of start to wrap up by really looking into the future. You know, like you say, you're working on new music. We know that. I know you've also said that you see this next record, whatever shape it takes, being some kind of conclusion to the story you've been building and the narrative and the world you've been building, some kind of conclusion there at the end of this one with one more record. I guess my question is there a pressure to wrap that up neatly in a bow, or are you feeling more open-ended about it? I mean, I guess it's like any TV show, any film, anything narrative, some part of your head goes, oh, it'd be nice if everything's dealt with nice and neatly, but the themes you're talking about don't work that way to me. So it's like, are you feeling more open about it, or is there a wrapping up type plan going on with you now?
I'll say this: any show that, you know, has a finale that people are, you know, less than satisfied. I've always argued with them. Like, yeah, no, it was perfect. It's exactly what it needed. Like, there's something to be said, and I understand there's certain. I think that maybe not all shows, but if it's coming from the same place, you can't like, it's perfect. If it's coming from, if the whole time, the whole story, the whole journey has come from the same source, the way that source decides to end that journey is perfect. Now, when you start bringing other people and other sources into the creative process, into the storytelling process. That's when you can get critical. Like if they hadn't brought that person on, if they hadn't, changed this about the lineup, or changed this about the creative mind behind it, it's all coming from us. And so that's one of the things that I feel confident about, is whatever we decide to do, however we decide to tell the story, at least our fans will know it's coming from us, and it has come from us this whole time. And at least that's something to stand on. And I think maybe I'm just kind of like pumping myself up that like, we're about to figure out how this ends and in what way it ends. And it's a daunting task. But I want to remind ourselves of that at least the fan that understands that no one has come in and been a new source of inspiration, a different voice in the creative process and the storytelling. It's been the same. It's been from the same two minds this whole time. And I think our real fans will notice that and recognize that and appreciate that for being pretty rare. And yeah, that's my speech.
Thank you once again to Tyler and Josh for that conversation. And like I said before, if you want to check out the entire interview, it is available right now in this special edition of the magazine. 36 pages, photos from the live stream, and a giant double-sided poster. Get it right now at shop.rocksound.tv. In the meantime, I've been James Wilson Taylor. We will see you again soon for a brand